Good evening, friends. A warm welcome to all. Today, the webinar is on exemptions and abatements under GST. And for this, we have our guest speaker, CA Ashok Batraji, very renowned faculty. Welcome, sir. Though he does
Thank
not
you.
need any intro, but let me read his brief profile. He became a chartered accountant in 1981. Subsequently, he became a law graduate in 2009. Besides, he is an alumnus of reputed Shri Ram College of Commerce, Delhi. He possesses rich professional experience of more than 38 years in business and taxation consultancy and 15 years experience in litigation matters. Many cases professionally represented by him and adjudicated in favor of his clients have been reported in prominent law journals. He has been writing articles and books ever since 2004. In addition, he has written a book on Sabka Vishwas Scheme 2019. He has effectively addressed more than 1,200 seminars and conferences on indirect taxes organized by professional institutes like ICAI, ICSI, Chamber of Commerce, trade associations, National Academy of Customs, Indirect Taxes, and Narcotics nearly throughout India. He is also the distinction of being conferred with Best Speaker Award of Indirect Taxes by NIIC of ICAI. And now we have with us none other than CA Vivek Khuranaji, founder of CS Sansar, and his name is just enough for the CS. Now I request CA Vivek Khuranaji to welcome him and give him a welcome address. So please.
Thank you very much, Stuti ji. Respected CA Ashok Batra ji, CA Stuti Mahajan ji, and all respected member of the profession. A warm welcome to all of you at today's webinar on exemption under GST. First of all, my sincere thanks to Batra sir for accepting our invitation and giving his valuable time. Sir, thank you very much. No words for you. And as Stuti already said, he doesn't need any introduction. He's a very, very famed person. And we can say that master in GST. And he will guide us today regarding the exemption because every time I said, because in GST day by day it's going more and more complication. So like Batra sir and some other speakers are there who are guiding us from time to time regarding the complexity of GST. And today's topic is very important regarding the exemptions. So lots of litigations are there which are exempt or not. So he will today guide us. So over to you, Batra sir, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Viveki, for the nice introduction. At the outset, I would like to thank CA Sansar for providing me this opportunity wherein I can share my views on a very interesting topic of exemptions under GST. Friends, one of the objectives of introducing GST was to have a tax regime with wider tax base and minimum exemption. However, due to certain reasons, maybe socio-economic, political, and other reasons, there are more than 150 exemptions in goods and more than 90 exemptions in services. Some of these exemptions are conditional, some of these exemptions are wholly or partially. Let us understand, once there is an exemption and the activity is not leviable to GST, then even if the transaction wherein recipient is liable to pay tax under reverse charge, there shall be no liability. So once the activity is exempted, it is exempted under both forward charge as well as reverse charge. Friends, we have seen the definition of the charging section of GST is very wide, and the subject matter is goods and services, which has been also defined very widely. So in a tax regime where the taxability of each and every activity is there, and there are few exemptions, so everybody would like to take advantage of the exemption, and the significance of the exemption goes up. Ideally, it is the best situation that there are no exemption. Every businessman is clear that he has to pay the tax, he has to collect it from the customer. Ultimately, the tax incidence has to be borne by the recipient only. But as I told you, more than 150 exemptions in goods and more than 90 exemptions in service tax. In services, it is already there. According to P. Ramanathan Iyer, fourth edition, the word exempt means putting a person beyond the application of law. So that means once an activity has been exempted, it is not subject to GST. If we look at the statutory provisions dealing with the exemption, then Section 11 of CGST Act and Section 6 of IGST Act confer power on the government to grant exemptions to any supply of goods. However, that exemptions need to be in public interest. Under GST, every exemption has to be recommended by the GST Council, and thereafter, under the delegated legislation, an exemption notification is being issued by the board. Exemptions, as I told you, can be either absolute or exemptions can be there with subject to certain conditions. Exemptions can be granted in a special case by issuance of a special order also, under circumstances of an exceptional nature. It reminds me in pre-GST era, when there used to be a confusion in the market and nobody was charging tax, there was a section which empowers the government to grant exemption retrospectively. It is something of that kind wherein the government in special cases can grant exemption by issuing an order. But of course, those exemptions has to be given an exceptional nature, and the scope of the exemption is much less as compared to the earlier provisions in the law. Now, it is very important to read the explanation to Section 11 of CGST Act, because it clearly says that a registered person who is supplying goods and services shall not collect the tax. The word is shall, in excess of the effective rate. So whatever is the tax leviable, then he has to collect. He cannot collect more than that. But then we should not forget 76(1) also, which says even if you have collected some amount more than the amount on which the tax is leviable to be paid, then you cannot keep that money with you. You cannot make profit out of taxes, which we normally call a concept of unjust enrichment. That amount either you have to refund to the person whom you have collected in excess, or you have to deposit with the government. So collecting more tax cannot be a source of revenue. If an item is liable to be taxed at 12% and I have collected 18%, I cannot take this ground that this item is liable to be taxed at 12%, I'll pay tax only at 12%, and the difference of 6% I'll retain with me. That difference is not available to me. Section 76(1) clearly says if you have collected any amount representing the same as a tax amount, then if it is more than the rate at which it is leviable to tax, you have to deposit that money with the government. Now, friends, exempt supply, the definition has been given in 247. If you read this clause carefully, you will find three kinds of activities are being covered under exempt supply. One, which attract nil rate of tax. Secondly, who is wholly exempted under Section 11 and 6. And third, it includes non-taxable supply like alcoholic liquor for human consumption or 5 petrol products. Unlike earlier regime, where there was a difference between nil rated and exempt supply, now there is no distinction, because nil rate of tax is also being covered in the definition of exempt supply. In the past, we have seen a lot more litigation. If there is a nil rate of tax, then he was entitled to claim the benefit of credit. But now under GST, the things have been made simpler for all of us, and nil and exempted both have been put into the same category. And once I am engaged into exempt supply, I cannot claim the tax credit. Partial exemptions are not covered under the above definition, but because partial exemption is to the extent of the exemption being granted, so to that extent, it has to be treated as exempt supply. Export of exempt supply is also treated as zero rated supply. This is a very, very important change. Everybody must keep in mind, prior to GST, if I was into the business of exporting certain things which were exempted under that law, for example, exempted services, if I am into the export, let us say medical services, then it can never be treated as an export of service. But now Section 16, subsection 2 very clearly provides that even if you are exporting supply of goods and services which are exempted, it can classify as a zero rated and you can claim the benefit which are available to the export of services. Now we can understand what is the basic difference between taxable supply, exempt supply and non-taxable supply. Although, as I told you, non-taxable supply is also included into the exempt supply. But for the purpose of understanding, I have prepared this small table which will explain you what is taxable supply as defined in clause 108 of section 2, which is leviable to tax. Exempt supply, as I told you, which is exempted under section 6 or 11 of the Act, and 278 says non-taxable supply, which is not leviable to tax. Taxable supply is having a very wide ambit, and according to my understanding, if it is a taxable supply, then only the exemption can be granted. Exempt supply covers exempt supplies which are exempted under section 11 and 6 nil rate, as well as non-taxable supply, as I've already explained it to you. Supplies which are chargeable to tax have been defined in notification number 1/27 and 11/27 as amended from time to time. Supplies which are exempt has been given in notification number 2/2017 and 12/2017. So these are the two basic exemption notifications. Now, there are certain exemptions which are conditional exemptions. Conditional exemptions means exemptions which are available subject to fulfillment of certain conditions. I am not explaining you only in theoretical part. When we'll move further, I'll explain you with examples what does conditional exemption means and what is absolute exemption. Absolute exemptions are exemptions which are available without any condition. Then conditions can either be substantive or procedural. Whenever there is a conditional exemption, it is a settled law now. Supreme Court has stated in a number of judgments that if the substantive conditions are being satisfied, then the benefit of exemption cannot be denied even if there are certain procedural lapses. For example, I am entitled for ITC on the purchase of certain supplies which has been used for in the course or furtherance of business. Unfortunately, in that invoice, which is one of the conditions under section 16(2), I must have a duty paying document which includes the tax invoice. And in that tax invoice, if some particulars have not been correctly filled in, my credit cannot be denied to me. It is the duty of the proper officer to provide me an opportunity to remove that defect. Sometimes the exemptions are optional and sometimes they are mandatory. For example, when we talk about restaurant services, where there is a 5% concessional rate of tax subject to the condition that the restaurant owner is not eligible for the claim of input tax credit, it is mandatory. No restaurant can take a stand that I will charge tax at the general rate and then I should be allowed input tax credit. Similar kind of provision has been made in the case of real estate transactions also, where the builder has to sell his affordable housing, he has to charge 1%, other than affordable 5%, subject to non-fulfillment of the non-claim of the credit. But there are certain exemptions, and most of the exemptions are optional in nature, where either I can avail the exemption or I can discharge the tax at the normal rate, and then I should not follow the restrictions specified in those exemptions. We will deal with those examples also when we will go further in the slides. One of the example of conditional exemption is services provided by and to Federation International Football Association and its subsidiaries under FIFA U17 Women World Cup. Now this exemption is available only for FIFA U17 Women World Cup, provided the condition is there that Director, Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports certificate that the services are directly or indirectly related to any of the events. So that means a certificate which has to be given by the ministry, that is Director Support of the Ministry of Youth Affairs, is one of the conditions. Now, if we talk about absolute exemption, we all understand that once I am constructing my house under GST regime for my personal residence, if the contract is with material, I am liable to pay the tax. The exemption is only when the services by way of pure labor for construction, etc., is being given to the contractor. I purchase all the material directly and ask the contractor to provide services only. Then only that exemption is there. So exemption by way of pure labor, I need not take any certificate from anybody. Once I have given a contract of pure labor to the contractor, I can avail the exemption and there is no GST liability tagged on that. The tax is not payable on the final product and the final product becomes costlier as credit chain is lost and supplier is not able to pass on the incidence of input tax to supplier. This is the situation when I am supposed to pay tax at a lower rate and then I am not entitled for the credit. In that situation, sometimes my inputs are such that even the concessional rate plus the loss of credit becomes much more costly for me rather than paying tax at full rate and claim the credit. So as I told you, if there are conditions you feel that financially those conditions are not suitable to you and that exemption is optional, you can ignore that exemption notification, discharge the tax at the normal rate, and you are not supposed to any restriction as specified in those exemptions. If we talk about present scenario, then as I told you, there are only two notifications which has been issued for granting exemption. So far as goods are concerned, it is 2/2017 under CGST Act and the similar number under IGST Act. With regard to services under CGST Act, the notification number is 12/2017, whereas under IGST Act, the number is 9/2017. So only two notifications. Why there is a need for the notification under IGST? Because there are certain exemptions which are available only under IGST. So it is very important to understand. In spite, normally people look at the exemption notification number 2 and 12, which is been given in CGST Act, and don't take cognizance of these two notifications. It is equally important to look at this notification because certain exemptions have been provided only under IGST. Friends, now I'll come to the issue which is really important for all of us, and that is how these exemption notifications are to be read. I am into indirect taxes for last, I'll say, for 15 years. Practically, I am doing nothing but indirect taxes. Still, I find difficulty in interpreting any exemption notification. So, broadly, I have tried to explain you there are certain exemptions which are activity based. For example, services by way of transfer of a going concern as a whole or an independent part thereof, or supply of services associated with transit cargo to Nepal and Bhutan. So these are exemptions which are being given. Who is providing these supplies or who is carrying out these activities, to whom that activity is being carried out, to whom the billing is being done, who is the service recipient, both are totally immaterial. Kindly appreciate, once the exemption has been given to an activity, then the status of the supplier of service, the status of the recipient of service becomes totally immaterial. Why I am saying so? Because sometimes the exemption has been given to a specific supplier and that supplier subcontracts some of the work to subcontractor, and the question comes whether that subcontractor is eligible for the exemption. So once this kind of exemption notification is there, where the activity itself has been exempted, it doesn't make any difference whether it is being provided by the main contractor or by the subcontractor or by the subcontractor. So this activity will remain exempted in the hands of all the executor or provider of such services. Then services by way of renting of residential dwelling is another example. Services by way of extending deposit, either it is NBFC or it is bank or anybody else who is into the business of providing deposit loans and advances, he will get the benefit. Similarly, services by way of renting of residential dwelling, that property may be owned by a company, by an individual, by a HUF, by a partnership firm, doesn't matter. that premises has been given for the purpose of residential dwelling to the MD of a company, to the partner of a firm, to an individual, to a salaried class person, doesn't make. It is the use. If that building is being used for the purpose of residential dwelling, there is no doubt there is no GST on that. Similarly, extending deposits, similarly, services by way of slaughtering of animal. That slaughtering may be done by manually, by machine, even the manner is not being provided. It may be provided by a slaughterhouse, which may be a private limited company, may be provided to an individual, may be provided to the government or anybody else. So all these become absolutely meaningless once the exemption has been given to the activity. Sometimes the exemption has been given to a specified supplier. It is not for every supplier. There may be 2 or 3 kind of supplier who are engaged in providing those services, but a specific supplier may be exempted. For example, if you read this entry 8, which says services provided by the central government. So, irrespective of the nature of service, the first thing which is really important is that service must be provided by the central government, state government, union territory, or local authority to another central government, union territory. So that means provider and recipient both has been specified in this. Of course, I am dealing with the subject where specified supplier is being given. So here the specified supplier has to be central government, state government, union government, local authority. Now, most of the time there is a dispute whether a PSU is being covered in central government, state government, union territory, local authority, whether DD is a local authority, whether institute is an autonomous body. So all those things are there. But what is really important to understand is the service must be provided by central government, state government, union territory, local authority. The definition of all these have been provided in the Act. So we have to first of all see if that supplier falls into this, then only he can avail exemption under this entry. Services provided by the central government, state government, union territory, local authority, where the consideration for such services does not exceed 5,000. Now, the conditional notification has also come. It is not only specified supplier, but there is a conditional restriction also that the value of such consideration should not be more than 5,000 rupees. Services by a hotel. Now, kindly see, it is not the supplier in a sense that the person who is providing the service has been defined. He says services provided by a hotel. Now that hotel may be owned by a proprietorship firm, partnership firm, private limited company, it doesn't matter. So it is services by a hotel in guest house, club or campsite by whatever name called for residential or lodging purposes having value of supply of a unit of accommodation below 1,000 rupees per day or so wherever a hotel in guest house, it may be owned by the proprietorship firm, partnership firm, private limited company or government or semi-government, where the rent is up to 1,000 rupees per unit of accommodation per day. Certainly, there is no GST on that. Now, a very clear-cut example is entry number 26, services provided by the RBI. The nature of service has not been mentioned in this entry. If you look at this, the only condition is that the service must be provided by the RBI. So, irrespective of the nature of services, once he has provided any service which is subject matter of taxation under GST, he can claim exemption. That is, RBI can claim exemption under entry number 26. Now, there are similar kind of situation wherein the supplier is not specified, but recipient is being specified. For example, services provided to the central government. In entry number 8, we were reading services provided by the central government, local government, state government, union territory, or local authority. Here, if you read carefully, you will find services provided to the central government, state government, union territory. Even the term local authority is missing under any insurance scheme. Now, this is a conditional one. It has to be insurance scheme for which total premium paid, where the premium has been paid by the central government or state government or union territory. Kindly appreciate that even the term local authority is missing in this exemption. So, services must be provided to central government, state government under an insurance scheme where the premium has been paid by them. Now, who is the one who is the insurer? It can be a public sector company, it can be a private sector company, it can be a private house, doesn't matter. So long as the insurance premium is being paid by the central government, state government, and it is for the insurance scheme, it will get exemption under this category. Similarly, services provided to the central government, state government, union territory administration under any training program for which total expenses is borne. Similarly, there the exemption was to any insurance scheme. Here it is to the training program where the whole expenditure has been borne by the state government and central government. Now, I am going to give you an example where the supplier and recipient both has been specified. So, in order to avail this kind of exemption, we must see that the supplier, for example, entry number 30, it says services by the Employees State Insurance Corporation. So, exemption is only to one company, one corporation. What is that? Employees State Insurance Corporation. To whom, if he is providing service to any outside world, to government, that is not exempted. The services must be provided to the persons governed under the Employee State Insurance Act. So the supplier has to be ESI and supply has to be a person governed under that. Then only this exemption is available. Similarly, when we come to services provided by the EPFO, Employees Provident Fund Organization, to the persons governed under the Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provision Act, this exemption can be availed by EPFO under entry number 31. Services provided by the IRDA, Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority, to insurer under the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India Act, services provided to a recognized sports body by an individual as a player. A player must provide the service, a referee must provide the service, a coach or a team manager to whom? To a recognized sports body. Similarly, another recognized sports body. So, services provided to a recognized sport body by another recognized sport body or by a player, referee, umpire, coach or team manager for participation in a sporting event, these are exempted if the recipient is somebody else or recipient is other than recognized sports body or the supplier is not being covered under these two clauses, then this exemption cannot be claimed. Now, friends, I will deal with certain major exemptions under the GST law and try to understand what are the scope of those exemptions. As I told you, once the charging section is so wide that there is a GST on the supply of all goods and services. And goods means all tangible property other than money, securities, etc. And then services is anything other than goods. With such a wide definition, the importance of these exemptions goes manifold because anybody would like to get covered under these exemptions. And as I told you, reading the exemption notification is itself an art. So now we will try to understand some of the major exemption notifications. Services by way of healthcare services by a clinical establishment, an authorized medical practitioner or paramedics. अब अगर आप इसको देखेंगे तो ये एंट्री 74 क्या कहती है? हेल्थ केयर सर्विसेज which has been defined, service has to be provided by a clinical establishment. This term has also been defined, an authorized medical practitioner, paramedics. Then it is another category. When we will read B, it will be independent of A. So in order to get covered in A, what are the healthcare services? Any service by way of diagnosis or treatment or care. It covers all the three stages. That is pre-treatment, that is diagnostic. So all diagnostic labs, their services are exempted. Treatment, and then after post-care also, post-treatment care services is also exempted, and that services must be for illness, injury, deformity, abnormality or pregnancy in one of the recognized system of medicine in India. And then it includes services by way of transportation of patient to and from a clinical establishment, but does not include, kindly appreciate, first of all, it is the exhaustive definition, then including part includes certain services, but it says it does not include transplant or cosmetic or plastic surgery. इसके अंदर भी exception है, but does not include means this activity has become taxable. When it becomes taxable, then the word except has been used, which further clarifies that though this activity of cosmetic or plastic surgery is taxable, but once it is being done to restore or reconstruct anatomy or function of any body affected due to congenital defects, बचपन से किसी को निशान पड़ जाते हैं, उनको हटाने के लिए कुछ किया गया, या एबनॉर्मलिटी, इंजरी या ट्रामा, किसी एक्सीडेंट में कुछ हो गया, उसके लिए कोई कॉस्मेटिक सर्जरी करनी पड़ी या प्लास्टिक सर्जरी करनी पड़ी, वो नहीं. So that means hair transplant, cosmetic or plastic surgery being done to enhance the personality of the person, whereas he is not suffering from any congenital or other accident, etc., is taxable. So kindly appreciate how to read. Healthcare services are exempted. So they have defined the scope. Then what is being included, but what is not included is transplant or cosmetic surgery. So it becomes taxable once it is being excluded from exemption. But then they have provided another exemption within the exemption. So if this is also being done to remove some defect which is there since birth or because of some accident, etc., and this surgery is not being done to enhance the personality, then it will remain exempted. So this is how the exemption notifications need to be read very carefully. Now, clinical establishment. Clinical establishment, because the service has to be provided by clinical establishment. So clinical establishment, they have defined a hospital, nursing home, clinic, sanatorium. Sanatorium is hospital for long period of time or any other institution by whatever name called that offers services or facilities requiring diagnostic treatment, or a place established as an independent entity or part of established diagnostic or investigative services of the. So this is the definition of clinical establishment, which is very wide. According to my understanding, it doesn't say it has to be a society, trust, company, whatsoever. If it is a hospital, nursing home, and you're providing service of treatment, certainly you get covered. Then service can be provided by authorized medical practitioner. That term has also been defined. It is not only MBBS doctor. It says a medical practitioner registered with any of the council. It may be a medical council or any other council, recognized system of medicine, established or recognized by law in India, and includes a medical profession having a requisite qualification to practice in any recognized system of medicine. Ayurveda, homeopathy, all are being recognized system of medicine in India. So all those persons who have been authorized by the Ayurvedic council or this homeopathic council are also exempted. Now we have certain clarifications from the department also saying what are the scope of this exemption services. So healthcare services provided by clinical establishment, again as I have already gone through the definition, authorized medical practitioner or paramedics have been exempted from GST by entry number so and so, which includes, now in this circular they have clarified, consultancy charges paid by the hospital to the doctors are exempted, amount retained by hospital from fee collected from parent, food supplied to inpatient. Because a composite supply, principal supply is medical services. So obviously keeping in view the language of composite supply, it is exempted. Now friends, there is another circular issued with regard to the medical services, that is circular number 51 dated 31st of July, where they have clarified that ambulance services provided by the government, private service provider to patients, private service provided to the government under health mention scheme are also exempt. Then entry number 74B, services provided way of transportation or petition in ambulance other than those specified in A above. Pure services provided to the state government, central government of any activity in relation to this, public health is a function. So this is all scope of the medical services which they have clarified. And they say this is 74B which you are covering, but these services are covered under entry number 3, which is not, I am not discussing that entry, but because this circular has clarified that these services are being exempted under entry 3, which are medical services. So I have mentioned it here as well. Then comes another important exemption, charitable activities. most of my professional brothers are dealing in income tax. Now they get confused when they argue a matter under Income Tax Act, where the definition of charitable activity is very wide. An activity which is charitable under income tax law does not necessarily mean then that activity will get covered under charitable activities in GST also. My dear friends, here the definition of charitable activity is very restricted and very specific one. Kindly appreciate. Now I'll read the entry to explain you the scope of this. It has to be provided by an entity. First of all, everybody who is doing charitable activity will not be exempted. Charitable activities get exemption only when an entity registered under Section 12 double capital A of the Income Tax Act. And then if he is a charitable entity under Section 12 double AA, does not mean all charitable activities will get exempted. Then it says by way of charitable activities. So only those activities which are being done by charitable activities, and this charitable activity has been further defined, and this is the area where you need to be very, very careful. Unlike income tax, here the definition is very restrictive one. It's an exhaustive definition and says activities relating to public health by way of care or counseling. Public health by way of care or counseling of whom? Not everybody. Terminally ill person or persons with severe physical or mental disability. This within bracket I have given the meaning, which is the dictionary meaning of the term. So I am not reading it, but of course it helps us in understanding what exactly they mean. So persons afflicted by HIV or AIDS, persons addicted to a dependence forming substance such as narcotic drugs. So अगर मैं केयर और काउंसलिंग किसी बुखार वाले आदमी की करता हूँ, या मैं केयर और काउंसलिंग किसी डायबिटीज की करता हूँ, can you say it will get covered in this clause? I am only on this clause right now. The scope of this clause is very limited. Terminally ill person. So that means who is very ill, the last stage of his life, or persons with severe physical or mental disability, HIV, AIDS specific conditions, and then it says persons addicted to a dependence forming substance such as narcotic drug and alcohol, जिसको इनकी आदत पड़ गई है और उनको आप सर्विसेज दे रहे हैं, उनकी काउंसलिंग कर रहे हैं. So counseling is also not exempted in general manner. It is exempted when provided in Roman I, double I and triple I. Then it says public health by way of. Then services must be provided by public health by way of public awareness of preventive health, family planning, or prevention of HIV infection. Advancement of religion, spirituality, or yoga. Time is not with me. Otherwise, I would have given you why these words have been chosen. But anyway, forget about the purpose. The only thing is advancement of religion, spirituality, or yoga is also a charitable activity. Advancement of education program or skill development relating to. Now, not all educational program or skill. That skill development must be relating to abandoned, orphaned, or homeless children, physically or mentally abused and traumatized persons, prisoners, or persons over the age of 65. Now, if there are special kind of children who are having some infirmity since birth, special children we call them, if they belong to rich families, because it can happen with anybody, do they get covered here? According to my understanding, if there are children who have been suffering since birth and they are not abandoned, orphaned, or homeless, and they belong to well-to-do family or middle-class family, they will not get covered here. Physically or mentally abused and traumatized person. This clause is entirely different. Its scope is not since birth. If I am having an infirmity, I will not get covered here. Even I will not get covered. So any education program or skill development to special persons, special children who are having disability since birth doesn't get covered here. I am just giving you the example how to read this. This is really important. Then preservation of environment including watershed. Environment का जो preservation है वो भी सिर्फ 3 purpose के लिए, watershed, forest and wildlife. It's an inclusive definition. You can add similar words of similar kind, but it cannot go beyond the preservation of environment. So this is really important. Then we had a circular number 32 where they have said whether hotel accommodation provided by trust to student covered within the definition of charitable activities. Now, it's a very interesting circular. Of course, circulars are not binding either on the code or on the appellant. But yes, we can have a view what is the departmental thinking. Once it is being said कि hostel accommodation जो students को दी गई, क्या ये charitable activity का part है? उनका नहीं, ये charitable activity का part नहीं है. हाँ, अभी हमने deal किया, if the amount is less than 1,000, then there is a general exemption. They can also avail it. This is what it has been clarified by the government in this circular. Services provided by an entity registered under section itne. Then they have given what are the charitable activity. Then they have concluded does not covered under 4th entry. However, exempted under entry 14 for declared tariff up to 1,000. So even a trust or a religious trust for that matter, धर्मशाला में भी अगर आपसे 1,000 रुपए से ऊपर लिया जाता है, so it is not being covered in charitable activity unless otherwise it's a religious activity. Staying in the hotel cannot be called a religious activity. So once a dharamshala is charging more than 1,000 rupees, it doesn't get exemption in this entry. Be careful. Then another exemption is being given whether GST shall be applicable on residential program or camps meant for advancement of religion, spirituality or yoga, where the fee charges include the cost of boarding and lodging. So now, in order to avail the exemption, it is further thing. If I give room where I am charging more than 1,000 rupees, certainly that becomes taxable. But in case I am charging 10,000 rupees for 2 nights, 3 days, a course which is a religious course, will it be covered under the exemption? Then the board has clarified such services shall be exempted from GST as long as the primary and predominant activity, objective and purpose of such residential program encompasses advancement of religion. However, if those trusts merely or primarily provide accommodation or serve food and drink against consideration in any form, including donation, such activities will be taxable. Where the prime objective is the camp, and then it is incidental, then being a composite supply, because the principal supply is exempt, so other incidental supplies will also get exempt. Provision of activities such as holding of fitness camp. This is important. Look at the way the department is reading this exemption notification. It says provision of activities such as holding of fitness camp or classes such as those in aerobics, dance, music, etc. will be taxable. So they make it clear. आपने कहीं एरोबिक की क्लास लिख दी, उसको योगा का नाम दे दिया है, डांस की क्लास ले ली, उसको योगा कैंप दे दिया, तो नहीं होगा. We have to look at the real nature of the transaction. Of course, it is the document which will be debated in the court of law. If my document says I have provided this service and the government does not have any other evidence, how will they prove it? So that's the question of evidence which can be argued in the court of law. But if we try to understand what are the scope of these services, so it gives a very clear idea to you that services exemption notification has to be strictly interpreted. Even the Supreme Court has stated, some of the judgment I have quoted in the subsequent slides, which says for the purpose of eligibility of exemption, we have to look at it very minutely, strictly. But once you enter into the exemption notification, you are eligible, then procedural aspect cannot come in your way. If you satisfy this substantive condition, then you are entitled for the exemption. This is what I have already explained it to you. So I am repeating it for the sake of repetition. Now, this is development right, a very controversial subject. I'm sure there was a program of Puneet Agarwal on the CS Sansar itself. He also dealt with that situation, and you must have attended number of webinars. So I thought I must give my view also. So transfer of development right or floor space index on or after 1st April 2019 for construction of residential apartment by a promoter in a project intended for sale to the buyer, except where the consideration has been received, will be exempted. 1/4/2019 से रियल एस्टेट के लिए एक नया मैकेनिज्म बनाया गया अंडर विच दे कैन डिस्चार्ज द लायबिलिटी. पहला क्वेश्चन तो ये था कि टीडीआई वेदर इट इज सब्जेक्ट टू जीएसटी और नॉट. नाउ एट लीस्ट a major benefit has been provided. If I am getting a development right from the landowner and I sell all the flats before I get the completion certificate, that means I am discharging GST on the sale of all flat and they are residential one, then this exemption is available. That's a different issue. Personally, I feel that transfer development right itself is not taxable. If that is not taxable because it's a benefit arising out of land and sale of land is being exempted under Schedule 3, it is neither a supply of goods services. Forget about that aspect. So in order to understand this development right, now with regard to the residential accommodation where I have been able to sell all the flats, so meaning thereby if I have not been able to sell certain flats and I receive the completion certificate, so this exemption will not be available to the unsold flat. This is what I want to say. Now there are conditions for this and how this exemption is being given. If you want, I can read this, but I think we should move further. This slide, I'll give it to Mr. Khurana, who is the person behind CA Sansar. So he will distribute this PPT to everyone. So rather than wasting my time on reading this exemption notification, I'll move further and discuss some important issues.
Sure,
So
sir.
this is again circular number 101, which is there. Now comes to educational services. This is again because number of schools are there. This is entry number 66. Now kindly read this exemption notification very carefully. First of all, it has got 3 clauses. All 3 are to be treated as independent. Clause A says, by an educational institution. Supplier is also being specified. It has to be an educational institution, and educational institution has been defined in the notification. That definition will come in the next slide. Kindly appreciate. Supplies has to be made by an educational institution to its student, faculty, and staff. Once these 2 conditions being satisfied, I am entitled for the whole exemption. Why I am devoting some time? Because number of CAs have come to me and asked me these questions. Sir, whether fees charged from the student for summer camp, will it get covered under this exemption? My dear professional brothers, kindly appreciate. This clause simply says educational institution. If I am covered in the definition of educational institution and my revenue comes from student, faculty and staff, the nature of services has not been specified here. I hope you will appreciate. All services which has been provided by an educational institution to its student, faculty and staff will get exempted under clause A of entry number 66 of notification number 12/2017. When we go to clause AA, then you will find that services has to be provided by an educational institution by way of. Now it clearly says by way of. So the manner of service and the nature of service has also been provided here by way of conduct of entrance examination against consideration in the form of entrance fee. So if I am educational institution, I am getting certain fees and that fees is for the purpose of entrance examination. That is also exempted under this clause. And the advantage of this clause is, though the activity is very restricted and only one activity, but that revenue may come from the student, faculty, staff or anybody else. Because unlike the entry A, where the recipient has also been defined, in this entry, recipient is not being defined. I hope you will appreciate this. Then comes clause B. Otherwise, if the same scope would have been there, then it would have been covered in A, the B. Now, it is not by. When I was talking about these exemptions, it is credit side of my profit and loss account or income and expenditure account, as the case may be. What are the revenue which are exempted in my hand? A revenue earned from student, faculty and staff, revenue earned from entrance examination, and in this case, it is services provided to an educational institution. That means my profit and loss account. I am not exempted in my expenditure, but the supplier who is providing these services, he will get exemption. He need not charge GST from me. So as a result thereof, the cost of the education institution will also go down. And what are these? These are specified 5 services only. All my expenditure is not exempted. Say any supplier who is providing supplies to an education institution, and that is transportation of student, faculty and staff. If you are supplying driver and conductor, which falls under manpower supply, that will not be exempted. Supplier who is providing transportation of students, then catering, including any midday meal scheme sponsored by the central government, security, cleaning or housekeeping services. Again, supply of manpower is not there. Your scope will be to do the housekeeping for the school or cleaning for the school or security for the school. Performed in such education institution services relating to admission to or conduct of an examination, supply of online educational journal or periodicals. So this is another exemption. Now the definition of educational institution is also important. Then further it says, provided that nothing contained in 1, 2, 3, 4 item B shall apply to an education under the institution providing services by way of preschool education and education up to higher secondary school and provided further, nothing contained in sub item 5 of item B shall apply to an institution providing services by way of. So that means they says that this supply of online educational journal and periodicals is not available to the institutions who are providing preschool education and education up to higher secondary. Similarly, education as a part of approved vocational system. Then this proviso also says item number 1, 2, 3 of item B shall apply to an educational institution. वो institution होनी चाहिए other than the institution who is providing school education up to higher secondary or preschool. So that means 1, 2, 3 of item B shall also be not available in terms provided nothing contains subsection 1, 2 and 3 of item B shall apply to an education institution other than an institution. ये सिर्फ मिलेगी जो प्री स्कूल एजुकेशन के हैं या एजुकेशन अप टू हायर सेकेंडरी प्रोवाइड करते हैं. ये यूनिवर्सिटीज को नहीं मिलेगी ये एग्जाम्पशन. काइंडली अप्रिशिएट दिस प्रोविजन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू एन एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशन. देन इट सेज 1, 2 and 3 that is security, catering and transportation that shall be available. It shall not apply to an education other than. So it is to an education other than. So that means these are the institutions which are eligible for the exemption, and they are services by who are providing services by way of preschool education and education up to higher secondary. So this is how this exemption notification have been made so complicated. It says not applicable. It should have stated that 1, 2, 3 and B shall be available only to pre-education. It says not available to an education institution other than an institution. So meaning thereby it is available only to the educational institutions which are providing preschool education, education up to higher secondary. तो स्कूल वाले बच्चों को ट्रांसपोर्टेशन माफ है, कॉलेज वालों को, यूनिवर्सिटी वालों को नहीं है. Then educational institution, as I told you, is the definition. Before we try to claim the exemption, before reading this, I must read whether I am educational institution. If I don't fall here, I cannot go and read this. I have no business, I have no right to go and look at this A or B. So what is that education institution? Anyway, who is providing services by way of. So it is an institution, irrespective of the organization of that institution, maybe a private limited company, a proprietorship firm or a society, provided by way of. He must be providing services by way of preschool education up to and education up to higher secondary school or equivalent. Education as a part of curriculum for obtaining a qualification recognized by any law for the time being in force. ICI, we are providing curriculum and we are getting fees from the student, which is recognized by law. So even ICAI is not liable to pay tax on the fees which is getting from a student. Then education as a part of approved vocational education course. This term approved vocational education course has also been defined. So before I enter into the exemption notification arena and try to understand the scope, this is really important to understand. Now the department has issued certain circular to clarify the scope of this service. One of the circular is circular number 82 dated 1st January 2019. It says services provided by education institution to students under entry number so and so. The question was whether this exemption is available to the services provided by IIM. Kindly understand this, it is really important. First of all, they are giving the definition of education institution. Then they are saying it is being covered because they are providing degree diploma. Then it says all long duration courses conferring degree were exempted. So there is no doubt I fall in Roman 2, education as a part of curriculum. But then short-term courses where only participation certificate is provided and that degree diploma is not approved by law, such as armed forces program, faculty development program are not exempted. So even IIM, when they are providing short-term courses which are not approved courses under the law for the time being in force, they are liable to discharge GST liability on such courses. So the exemption is not to the IIM. Exemption is to the educational institution and for the activities which has been specified in A, AA or B. And in this case, because none of the condition is being satisfied, so I am not being covered in any exemption notification. Legal services. अब इसमें बड़ा एक डिस्प्यूट आता है, लोग कहते हैं कि चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट भी तो लीगल सर्विसेज देते हैं, बट चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट की सर्विस चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट में कवर्ड है, उनको कोई एग्जम्पशन नहीं है. लीगल सर्विसेज आर एग्जम्प्टेड only when they have been provided either by an arbitral tribunal or by an advocate. This is entry number 45. Now you will understand and appreciate because they are under reverse charge. It is the recipient who has to discharge the liability. And as I have already told you, if there is an exemption to an activity, then under reverse charge also I am not liable to pay the tax. For example, transportation of agriculture produce is exempted. So if I am getting wheat and that is being transported by some limited company, even though we all understand transportation of goods by road, it is under reverse charge. If he is charging tax at a concessional rate of 5%, certainly I am not liable to pay any tax because that activity itself is exempted. Similarly, एडवोकेट के केस में भी या आर्बिट्रल ट्रिब्यूनल के केस में भी मुझे रिवर्स चार्ज में तभी पैसे जमा कराने हैं जबकि उनकी सर्विस इस एग्जम्पशन में कवर नहीं होती. अगर इस एग्जम्पशन में वो सर्विस कवर होती है तो मुझे रिवर्स चार्ज में भी कोई लायबिलिटी नहीं है. ये मैं बार बार रिपीट कर रहा हूं, मुझे बहुत बार ये क्वेश्चन आते हैं. आई एम जस्ट मेकिंग इट एब्सोल्युटली क्लियर टू ऑल ऑफ यू, माय डियर प्रोफेसर ब्रदर्स, दैट इफ service provided by an advocate or an arbitral tribunal is covered in this entry number 45 and the subsequent entry, certainly no liability on the recipient also. Now, first is any services provided by an arbitral tribunal की भी हम बात करते हैं. If they are providing service to any person other than a business entity, that means business entity has been defined under law. Any person who is carrying on business. So, in case anyone is availing a service who is not into the business, some charitable trust, etc., and some dispute arbitral tribunal, and they're providing services to a person who is not a business entity, maybe to the government, maybe to the governmental authority, maybe to somebody else who is not carrying out any business, certainly there is no tax on that activity, and as there is no tax, there is no question of depositing that money under reverse charge also. Then exemption, a business entity with an aggregate turnover up to such amount in the preceding financial year as makes it eligible for exemption from registration. So that means we all know under GST law, if I am a service provider, then I need not seek registration under section 22 if my aggregate turnover on pan-India basis does not exceed 20 lakh rupees. So if a person who is otherwise not liable to be registered and he is into some dispute and arbitral tribunal is there, even in that case, there is an exemption. Services provided to the central government, state government. So इसीलिए जितने भी गवर्नमेंट में एडवोकेट या आर्बिट्रल ट्रिब्यूनल होते हैं उसमें वो फीस चार्ज करते हैं और सरकार को जमा नहीं कराना होता पैसा, क्योंकि सरकार को उन लीगल सर्विसेज पे एग्जम्पशन दी गई है बाय एंट्री नंबर 45 और एग्जम्पशन नोटिफिकेशन नंबर 12/27. Now comes another service which is being provided by, first of all, what is important, a partnership firm of advocate. आपने किसी एडवोकेट फर्म से कोई 138 का केस करवाया या कोई और लीगल सर्विसेज ली, कोई कंसल्टेंसी ली, चाहे जीएसटी की ली, और एन इंडिविजुअल, इट मे बी इंडिविजुअल एडवोकेट आल्सो, एज एन एडवोकेट अदर देन ए सीनियर एडवोकेट. इंडिविजुअल एडवोकेट शुड नॉट बी सीनियर एडवोकेट. सीनियर एडवोकेट का मतलब ये नहीं कि उसकी सर्विस टैक्सेबल हो जाएंगी, उसके लिए एक अलग एंट्री है जो हम आगे पढ़ेंगे. तो इसलिए अभी यहाँ इस एग्जाम्पशन में पहले वाली क्लॉज में हमने पढ़ा आर्बिट्रल ट्रिब्यूनल, और यहाँ कौन कवर हो रहा है, when service provided by a party firm advocate or an individual advocate other than senior advocate. So all individual advocate other than senior advocates. Senior advocate does not mean by age or by qualification is LLM or he has taken a doctorate and all that. Senior advocate as designated by the court. So all individual advocates and firm, when they are providing legal services to the following, they are exempted. So once they are exempted, there is no question of any tax liability and a reverse charge. I am repeating for the sake of repetition also, because this kind of questions have been asked to be number of times by my professional brothers. An advocate or partnership firm of advocate providing legal services. अगर एक एडवोकेट ने दूसरे एडवोकेट को सर्विस दी, या एक पार्टनरशिप फर्म ने एडवोकेट को या एडवोकेट ने पार्टनरशिप को दी, ऑल परमुटेशन कॉम्बिनेशन बीइंग एक्सेप्टेड, सर्विस प्रोवाइड की अदर देन बिजनेस एंटिटी. आई हैड ए मैरिज डिस्प्यूट विद माय वाइफ, आई वांट टू go for divorce, I engage an advocate, I don't carry out any business, I am an employee somewhere, she may also be an employee, both of us are working, or she may be a housewife. So we are not being covered in the definition of business entity. So in that case, that individual is not liable to pay any tax under reverse charge. So any service, for example, there is an employee who was driving a car, incidentally met with an accident, and there is some death, etc. He has to engage an advocate. Certainly, he is receiving that service in his individual capacity, and he is not carrying out a business entity. Then he is not liable to pay the tax. Then come business entity, जिसका turnover जो भी आपने exemption limit में लिखा हुआ उससे कम हो या सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट हो. इन चारों केसेस में एडवोकेट को कोई टैक्स नहीं देना है, वो सर्विस ही एग्जम्प्ट है. एडवोकेट को तो वैसे भी नहीं देना, रिवर्स चार्ज में ही जमा कराना है रिसिपिएंट को. तो क्योंकि ये एग्जम्प्ट है तो आरसीएम में भी हमें जमा नहीं कराना. देन कम सर्विसेज प्रोवाइडेड बाय सीनियर एडवोकेट. इस क्लॉज को तीन तरह से उन्होंने कहा, आर्बिट्रल ट्रिब्यूनल, एडवोकेट और सीनियर एडवोकेट. अगर आप देखेंगे तो आर्बिट्रल ट्रिब्यूनल में जो तीन क्लॉजेस थी, ये तीनों कॉमन थी. इसके अंदर इसमें एडिशनल क्या थी, एन एडवोकेट और पार्टनरशिप फर्म एडवोकेट. सो वंस a individual advocate is providing service to another firm of advocate is also exempted. Otherwise 1 to 3 is almost same, which becomes here 2, 3, 4. And when it comes to provided by a senior advocate, it is again 1, 3 and 4, 2 is missing. So that means any person other than business entity with an aggregate turnover, central government. Sorry, your 1, 2, 3 is to be read. It is not 1, 3, 4, some typographical error. So anyway, so यहाँ भी वही तीन है जो आर्बिट्रल ट्रिब्यूनल के. सो एडवोकेट की इसमें सिर्फ एक एडिशनल है जब ही प्रोवाइडिंग सर्विस. सो सीनियर एडवोकेट भी जब अदर देन बिजनेस एंटिटी को देता है या एससी बिजनेस एंटिटी को देता है, इसका टर्नओवर छोटा है, या सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को देता है, तो उनकी सर्विस से एग्जम्प्ट है और फॉरवर्ड चार्ज या रिवर्स चार्ज दोनों में से कुछ भी नहीं लगता है. अब सर एक बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट इशू आ गया और वो है सर्विसेज बाय द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट. दिस इज रियली ए वास्ट टॉपिक, लेकिन ये मैंने इसलिए यहाँ आपसे डील करना शुरू किया कि ये बताता है कि सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट या यूनियन टेरिटरी या लोकल अथॉरिटी की सारी सर्विसेज एग्जम्प्ट नहीं है. एग्जम्पशन हैज बीन गिवन टू सर्टेन सर्विसेज. नाउ हाउ डज दिस entry read? This is the entry number 6 of this exemption notification. It says above services excluding the following. So he says all services provided by the government are exempt, excluding the following. So excluding means exemptions exclude karna hai. So they become taxable. So services by the Department of Post, services in relation to an aircraft or a vessel inside or the precinct of the part of the airport, transport of goods or passenger, any service, ये सब सर्विस प्रोवाइडेड टू बिजनेस है. तो ये A to C के अलावा कोई अगर सर्विस भी है बिजनेस एंट्री को दिया तो वो सब भी टैक्सेबल हो जाएगी. So all services are exempted except the following. So that means these are the list of taxable service. Then comes entry 7, services provided by the central government to a business entity with an aggregate turnover up to such amount, यानी small businessman को जो देते हैं. Another central government, state government, service by central government to state government covered under entry 8. This we have already mentioned when I was telling you specified service provider and recipient issue, where the consideration does not exceed 5,000 rupees. This also we have read when we are talking about conditional exemptions. However, they say that this shall not apply to the following exceptions. So once there is an exception in exemptions, so that means they become taxable activities. Then there have been certain circulars issued by the government. I don't want to go in detail into those circulars. My purpose is to only share and discuss how to read the exemption notification, what is the scope, etc. So this is a circular where certain question has been asked. I am once again repeating for the sake of repetition also. These circulars are not binding either on the SSC or on the court. But yes, it speaks about the mind. It is a Gita or Bible so far as the government employees are concerned. So in case you feel that this circular is beyond the statutory provision, you still can challenge this in the court by way of writ, challenging the virus of the circular, or you can claim the exemption and contest in the court of law, where the circulars may be held beyond the scope, and it has been held number of times. Whether GST shall be leviable on general insurance policies, they say no. Then the exemption, as we were reading, where the whole expenditure has been borne by the central government, so you have to go to that entry number 40. Then these are entry number 47. That's a specific exemptions has been given, services provided by the central government even to the business entity. Here, kindly appreciate, services provided by the central government recipient has not been specified. So any service received by any recipient, maybe a limited company, the station required under any law for the timing in force. Any fees charged by the central government for granting you registration, let us say in GST, for example, they put up certain fees. Presently, it is not there. If they put up, then even that fees will be exempted because that is for granting registration. If you are seeking registration from central government for any other department and there is a requisite fees, then that fees shall not be subject to GST. Testing, calibration, safety check or certification relating to protection or safety of workers, consumers, these are all exempt activities. Then issuance of passport, visa, driving license, birth certificate, death certificate, these are statutory functions. But for the purpose of clarity, they have said if these are being provided exemption and entry number 61. So if you look at it, central government, there are number of entries 7, 8, 9, and then comes 47, 61, 64, and 51. Even services provided by the GSTN network, because that is established, it's a joint venture of certain corporations and registered as a limited company, GSTN network. So once they are providing service to the government, so they say even that is being exempted. So specific exemption has been given to them. Otherwise, all services provided by the government are taxable, except they are covered in these entries, and they are having the huge scope. So very few services remain taxable in the hands of government. Then comes agriculture services. मैं मजाक में कहा करता हूँ कि एग्रीकल्चर वाले तो जवाई हैं, सन इन लॉ हैं इस गवर्नमेंट के, तो यहाँ पे बहुत सारी सर्विसेज एग्जम्प्ट की गई है, बट उसका स्कोप भी अनलिमिटेड नहीं है. माय हम्बल सबमिशन इज काइंडली रीड दोज एग्जम्पशन notifications very carefully. For example, if we go to entry 64, it says services relating to cultivation of plant and rearing of all form of animals. जानवरों की क्या कहेंगे उसको, रेयरिंग को, उसको बनाना, उनकी देखभाल करना, उनको बड़ा करना, या कल्टीवेशन ऑफ प्लांट, सब एग्जम्प्ट है एक्सेप्ट, अब उन्होंने कह दिया कि अगर आप हॉर्सेस को पाल रहे हैं फॉर फूड, फाइबर, फ्यूल, रॉ मटेरियल, अदर सिमिलर प्रोडक्ट और एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस, then they become taxable. So animal may be all form of rearing of all form of animal except. So except means, except in exemption means this activity becomes taxable. Then agriculture, then it says similar product or agriculture produced by way of, and other similar product or agriculture produced by way of. Agriculture produced may be by way of, जो activities इस तरह से की जाएंगी वही exemption होंगी. Agriculture operation directly related to production of any agriculture produce including. Now उन्होंने कहा कि agriculture produce से related सारी activities including cultivation, harvesting, threshing, plant protection or testing, farm labor, supply of farm labor, if any person is supplying farm labor and charging some commission is not liable to tax. Any process carried out at an agriculture farm including tending, pruning, cutting, harvesting, drying, cleaning, trimming, sun dyeing, etc. to make the project marketable. अब जीरी है, जीरी को आपने सफाई कर ली, उसकी टेंडिंग पुटिंग कर दी, वो ठीक है, लेकिन जब आप राइस मिल में कुछ चावल बनाते हैं तो वो एक्टिविटी जो पॉलिशिंग वगैरह की है वो नॉर्मली यहाँ नहीं होती है, जहाँ किसान के खेत पे, तो क्योंकि वो किसान के खेत पे नहीं होती है और ये मार्केटेबल करने के लिए नहीं होती है और प्राइमरी मार्केट में वो एज ए जीरी बिक जाता है एज ए सेल प्रोडक्ट, तो राइस वाली जो राइस मिल की एक्टिविटीज हैं दे विल नॉट गेट कवर्ड हियर, दे आर टैक्सेबल अकॉर्डिंग टू दिस एक्ट. Then services relating to cultivation of plant and rearing all form except the renting or leasing of agro machinery or vacant land, यानी अगर आपने वहां कोई गोडाउन लिया हुआ है या एग्रीकल्चर मशीनरी ली है फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ कल्टीवेशन एक्सेट्रा, या लोडिंग, अनलोडिंग, पैकिंग, स्टोरेज की सर्विसेज है या एग्रीकल्चर एक्सटेंशन सर्विस है, which has further been defined what is agriculture extension services, so they are also exempted. ये सरकार की कुछ क्लैरिफिकेशंस हैं, मैं उनको पढ़ नहीं रहा हूँ. एज आई टोल्ड यू, सर्कुलर्स आते हैं, कई बार मैं कह चुका दे आर नॉट बाइंडिंग, तो आप इनको पढ़ सकते हैं, जहां उन्होंने कुछ एग्जाम्पल दिए हैं अपने हिसाब से व्हाट आर एग्रीकल्चर सर्विसेज एंड वेयर एवर दे आर टैक्सेबल, व्हाई दे आर टैक्सेबल. प्रोसेस्ड प्रोडक्ट शैल नॉट बी कवर्ड अंडर एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस, मैं आपको बता ही चुका हूँ. नाउ दिस इज पैसेंजर ट्रांसपोर्टेशन सर्विसेज. ये थोड़ी सी इंपॉर्टेंट इसलिए है क्योंकि अगर आप जाते होंगे तो आप देखते होंगे कई जगह जीएसटी लगता है, कई जगह नहीं लगता है, तो उसको थोड़ा सा आप समझ लें. Services of transportation of passenger with or without accompanied belongings कहाँ exempt है? By railway. रेलवे में exemption है in a class other than. जब exemption में other than आ गया तो it becomes taxable. तो रेलवे भी जीएसटी लगाएगी once it is a first class ticket and air condition कोच की टिकट है, उन दोनों में जीएसटी लगता है. उसके अलावा जो सर्विसेज रेलवे देती है either it is second class और इट इज नॉट एयर कंडीशन कोच, उसके ऊपर जीएसटी नहीं लगता. एग्जम्पशन है टू ऑल द फेयर व्हिच हैज बीन कलेक्टेड बाय द मेट्रो, मोनोरेल और ट्रामवेल. इनलैंड वाटरवेज में जो स्टीमर्स वगैरह चलते हैं उनको एग्जम्पशन है. पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट अदर देन प्रीडोमिनेटली फॉर टूरिज्म पर्पस. अब यहाँ ध्यान से रखेंगे, अगर डीटीसी किसी बस को आपने एंगेज कर लिया, सॉरी आईएसबीटी से मान लीजिए पंजाब स्टेट ट्रांसपोर्ट की बस को आपने एंगेज कर लिया and you are taking that bus for the purpose of your marriage party, तो उस पर टैक्स लगेगा. ये कहता है पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट अदर देन प्रीडोमिनेटली फॉर टूरिज्म पर्पस. अगर वो पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट भी टूरिज्म के लिए है और वो कोई ट्रिप चला रही है दिल्ली टू शिमला डीटीसी और आप टूरिज्म के लिए उसको यूज कर रही है तो उस पर भी टैक्स लगेगा. एंड सिमिलरली इन अ वेसल बिटवीन टू प्लेसेस लोकेटेड इन इंडिया, मीटर्ड कैब और ऑटो रिक्शा. मीटर्ड कैब और ऑटो रिक्शा, मीटर्ड कैब काली पीली टैक्सी और ऑटो रिक्शा इंक्लूडिंग ई रिक्शास आर एग्जम्प्टेड. तो जहां आप ओला उबर की बात करते हैं वेयर दे आर यू आर यूजिंग द प्लेटफॉर्म ऑफ ए सर्विस प्रोवाइडर, देन दो सर्विसेज बिकम्स टैक्सेबल. Services by way of transportation of goods is also exempted. By road, it सर्विसेज ऑफ एक्सेप्ट बाय रोड, सारा माल ले जाना माफ है, उसके ऊपर कोई जीएसटी नहीं है, एक्सेप्ट गुड्स ट्रांसपोर्ट एजेंसी, जिसका लिटिगेशन हमेशा से रहा है। 1 जनवरी 2005 को ये सर्विस टैक्सेबल हुई थी, लेकिन आज हम 2020 में बैठे हैं, 15 साल हो गए, तब भी इस पर टैक्स लगता है। सिमिलरली, once there is a transportation of goods by courier agency, again the GST is leviable. Then transportation of goods by inland waterway is exempted. अब ये जीटीए की सर्विसेज आ गई जहां एग्जम्पशंस है। जैसे इन्होंने ये कहा था कि ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ गुड्स बाय रोड एग्जम्प्ट है एक्सेप्ट प्रोवाइडेड बाय जीटीए, ये टैक्सेबल है। अब जीटीए के अंदर भी एग्जम्पशंस है, काइंडली अप्रिशिएट। फर्स्ट एग्जम्पशन सेज ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ गुड्स is exempted except once that transportation done by goods transport agency, and goods transport agency has been defined in the law. Any person who is engaged in the transportation of goods and provide services and issue the consignment note. Any person engaged in the transportation of goods by road and issue the consignment note, that is the definition of goods. Courier agency has also been defined. यहाँ तो उन्होंने कह दिया ये टैक्सेबल है, अब उसके अंदर भी उन्होंने एग्जम्पशंस दे दी। फॉर एग्जांपल एंट्री नंबर 19 में उन्होंने कहा ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ गुड्स बाय एन एयरक्राफ्ट फ्रॉम प्लेस आउटसाइड इंडिया अप टू द कस्टम स्टेशन ऑफ इंडिया। अगर आप कोई माल बाहर से ला रहे हैं कस्टम स्टेशन ऑफ इंडिया से और माल बाय एयर आ रहा है तो वहां एग्जम्पशन है। 19A में कहता है सर्विसेज बाय वे ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ गुड्स बाय एयरक्राफ्ट फ्रॉम कस्टम स्टेशन ऑफ प्लेस इन इंडिया टू अ प्लेस आउटसाइड इंडिया। यहां से कोई माल बाय एयर जा रहा है और यूरोप में जा रहा है या मान लीजिए यूएसए में जा रहा है, दुबई में जा रहा है, तो उसकी एग्जम्पशन है। हालांकि ये एग्जम्पशन सिर्फ 30 सितंबर 2020 तक कही गई है। देन ट्रांसपोर्ट ऑफ गुड्स बाय ए वेसल फ्रॉम ए कस्टम स्टेशन ऑफ प्लेस इन इंडिया टू प्लेस आउटसाइड इंडिया, ये भी एग्जम्पशन 30 सितंबर तक प्रोवाइड की गई है। अब ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ रेल में क्या क्या एग्जम्प्ट है, ये सारी आइटम। अब अगर आप ध्यान से देखेंगे तो यहाँ लिखा डिफेंस और मिलिट्री इक्विपमेंट। अब मिलिट्री वालों ने कुछ फर्नीचर भेजा, whether it will come into defense or military equipment, whether the exemption will be available. Similarly, relief material meant for victim of natural or man-made disaster. कोविड है, आप दवाइयां ले जा रहे हैं या कहीं बाढ़ आ गई, कुछ सामान जा रहा है। न्यूज़पेपर और मैगजीन रजिस्टर्ड विद स्टार ऑफ न्यूज़पेपर। अब यहाँ what is covered in newspaper, what will be covered in magazine, that can be matter of dispute. So I am just trying to explain you that these words appears to be very simple, but when it comes to litigation, each word becomes very important. Railway equipment or material, agriculture produce, इसकी भी specific definition है। Milk, salt and food grain, यहाँ एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस के अलावा उन्होंने लिखा मिल्क, सॉल्ट एंड फूड ग्रेन इंक्लूडिंग कोल, पल्सेस एंड राइस, क्योंकि राइस एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस में कवर नहीं होता, मैं आपको एक्सप्लेन कर रहा था, इट इज ए प्रोसेस्ड फूड, तो उन्होंने राइस को अलग एग्जम्पशन दे दी। ये डिस्प्यूट आया था सर्विस टैक्स के रिजाइम में, जब AIDM के जयललिता ने सेंटर को सपोर्ट किया था, तो उन्होंने ये कहा था कि आप राइस को भी एग्जाम करें, तो उस टाइम ये एडिशन की गई थी। फॉरगेट अबाउट द पर्पस, राइट नाउ they say even if it does not fall in the definition of agricultural produce and it is rice, it is being exempted, then organic manure, खाद हम सबको पता ही है। Now transport of goods के लिए again all these things, services provided by a GTA to an unregistered person, so जो services unregistered persons को provide करता है GTA वो भी exempt है। अदर देन द फॉलोइंग रिसिपिएंट, अगर वो अनरजिस्टर्ड है बट एक फैक्ट्री है, एक सोसाइटी है, कोऑपरेटिव सोसाइटी है, तो उनको टैक्स लगेगा। एक कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स मैं आपसे यहां डिस्कस करना चाह रहा हूं। अगर हम रजिस्ट्रेशन की बात करते हैं अंडर सेक्शन 22, तो ये कहता है कि आपका एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर 20 लाख होना चाहिए व्हेन यू आर डीलिंग इन goods and services, and if you are dealing purely in goods then it can be up to 40 lakhs over Delhi is concerned. तो एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर में हमें एग्जम्प सप्लाई की डेफिनेशन भी ऐड करनी है, क्योंकि एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर की जो डेफिनेशन दी गई है उसमें टैक्सेबल, एग्जम्प्ट, एक्सपोर्ट एंड सप्लाई टू द डिफरेंट डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन एट द सेम टाइम हैज आल्सो बीन इंक्लूडेड। इट मस्ट बी केप्ट इन माइंड that input tax rate of goods and services exclusively for making exempt service shall not be available. ऐसा माना जाता है, लेकिन इसके लिए कोई स्पेसिफिक प्रोविजन नहीं है और सेक्शन 17(2) की लैंग्वेज ऐसी है, इट appears that it applies only to the common services. So forget about that litigation part of it. We will not go into that. So once I am engaged into the exempt supply, normally I am not eligible for the credit of input tax, etc. Input tax credit of goods and services used for making zero rated supply shall always be available. अगर मैं exempt सप्लाई का भी एक्सपोर्ट करता हूं तब भी मुझे उसका क्रेडिट मिल जाएगा, और हम सबको पता है कि when we are engaged into making the zero rated supply, that is export of goods which is being included in zero rated, in that scenario either I can export it by charging IGST or I can claim refund of GST paid on my input supplies. So this benefit shall be available even if I am exporting exempt supplies. I'm repeating, I have already told you in the beginning of my deliberation also, but let us say this must be kept in mind. Then in an exemption notification, the benefit of ambiguity must be strictly interpreted in favor of revenue, and the burden of proving that you are eligible for the exemption always rests with the person who is claiming the exemption. Now I'll deal certain important case laws which have laid down certain issues with regard to the exemptions. Onus to prove that one is entitled for exemption is on the person who intends to claim the exemption. It's a settled law. Once the department intend to collect the tax, then it is for the department to prove that you have done the taxable event under that law and you're liable to pay the tax. But once it comes to exemption, either it is income tax or it is GST, doesn't matter, or it is custom law, it is always decided that once the one who is claiming the exemption, he has to prove that he is eligible for the exemption and satisfy all the conditions. Recipient supply cannot be questioned about the applicability of exemption if it is set. This is very important. If a supplier is raising his invoice to me and is not charging any tax in that invoice, tomorrow, can the department come to me and say, this supply you have received from Mr. Batra, chartered accountant, and this supply was subject to GST, has not charged, you are liable to pay the tax? Certainly not. It is the duty of the supplier to collect the tax and pay, and in case he is not charging, the classification cannot be challenged in the hands of the recipient. Even in a case where the tax was leviable at 12%, he has charged 18%. And if the recipient has paid the tax without understanding that this item is liable to pay 12%, he will get the credit of 18%, the excess amount which he has paid. Whatever amount has been paid by the recipient to the supplier, whether it is less than the rate which is leviable, or it is more than the rate, the recipient shall get credit for the amount which he has paid to the supplier. The differential liability can be charged from the supplier if he has charged less rate of tax and he has collected more, as I told you in the beginning of my deliberation, by virtue of section 76(1), he has is under an obligation either to refund it to the recipient or he has to deposit with the government. Sometimes the language is such that there are two views which are coming out from that exemption notification. The following alternate can be considered. First of all, we can intimate to the department saying that this is our understanding of the exemption understanding and we are availing the exemption. Tomorrow the matter will go to the court and the court may say, no, this is only one clear meaning which is coming and this exemption was never available. Still, because I have communicated with the department, I have already disclosed it to the department, I intend to avail this exemption because of my misunderstanding. Department cannot invoke a extended period as prescribed under section 74, and the notice can be served to me only under section 73, which contains a lesser period So it's a huge advantage. Wherever you are in doubt and there are two views possible and you are claiming the exemption and the other view maybe you are not being covered in that exemption, kindly communicate with the department so that extended period cannot be invoked. Directly start. If you feel that once I'll go to the department will deny me the exemption, the the issue will come into the knowledge of the department, they will start litigating me. In that case, you can avail the exemption notification, but at your risk. If tomorrow the court says no, your understanding of the notification is not correct, certainly you will be fastened with the liability, which will be for the extended period along with interest and penalty. You can go for the advance ruling, but looking to the fact the way the advance rulings are being given by various states, it is not advisable to go for this. So the best course is you can go to the government and ask for the clarification. Your association or your chamber can go. Very recently, we have seen a litigation in the case of sanitization material. Sanitizers which are being sold in COVID and become one of the important consumable item, they have been paying tax at 12% under pre-GST, but now the department is of the view it is liable to be taxed at 18% 3404. And even Delhi High Court has now dismissed a writ petition. And once they went to the department also clarified no, it is liable to be taxed at 18%. So that has at least removed the ambiguity for the times to come. Yes, for the earlier period, you can take your own stand. So in my humble opinion, whenever an association feels that they are eligible for the exemption, look into the language, and there are some doubt given by other professionals or the language is such, then the best course is to seek clarification from the department. Now, so far as the ambiguity is concerned, if we look at it, because this exemption is not the creation of GST, these kind of exemptions were already available under the excise laws, service tax, or VAT, etc. Then there are certain important case laws which I am just quoting for your purpose. You can just read them. I'll just tell out what is the ratio of these case laws. This is very important case law, Commissioner of Custom, Mumbai versus Dilip Kumar and Company and others, the latest judgment of 2018. And with this judgment, the whole game plan is being changed. Earlier on, the court were of the view that if there are two views possible, the beneficial view should be taken, which is beneficial to the assessee. But for the very first time in 2018, it's a larger bench case, so it is very difficult to set aside this case, or you can say it is not applicable in my situation, or I can distinguish it is very difficult. So this language is very important, which I am reading for you. It is the law that any ambiguity in the taxing statute should ensure to the benefit of the subject assessee, but any ambiguity in the exemption clause of the exemption notification must be conferred in favor of the judge. So since this judgment has come, the whole game plan has been changed. So earlier on, wherever there have been possibility that the language is such it can be give some benefit to the client, we used to say you avail the exemption. But after this judgment, everybody has become very cautious. As a larger bench judgment in the case of Dilip Kumar and Company. Again, further in the case of ambiguity, charging the benefit once is go in favor of the subject assessing, but the same is not true for an exemption notification. And this is the nutshell finding of that. What are the consequences if you wrongly interpret an exemption notification? Sir, जीएसटी उस पर 18 और 28 और आपने एग्जम्पशन क्लेम कर लिया, आप एग्जम्पशन के लिए एंटाइटल्ड नहीं है, तो इट इज सुइसाइडल फॉर यू बिकॉज यू अंडरस्टैंड. Is there any business where the margin of profit is 18 or 28 net profit I am talking about? Certainly not. If not being so, and you are being asked to pay tax 18%, you are finished. Let us say there is a product X, you are claiming exemption, not charging any tax, and the tax is leviable to 18%. After 5 years, on your whole turnover, they will demand 18% along with interest and penalty, which will become 54% of your revenue. And if it is 28%, then 84%. Forget about 28, I'll consider only 18%. So this 60% tax of the revenue, you are not able to pay. That is the reason. जब भी इनकम टैक्स की रेड होती है, सरकार जितनी मर्जी कोशिश कर ले, कुछ ना कुछ साधने के बाद बच जाता है जो अनर्थ नहीं होता, जो डिपार्टमेंट के नॉलेज में नहीं आता। जब वो एडवांस टैक्स देता है, अपना पैसा वाइट करता है, तो उस पैसे को भी मिला के बिजनेस को ऑपरेशन में ले आता है और फल फूल जाता है, पैसे कमा लेता है। लेकिन जहां कहीं एक्साइज और कस्टम में रेड होती है और इस तरह की कोई सिचुएशन होती है कि आइटम इज सब्जेक्ट टू टैक्स एज यू नॉट चार्ज द टैक्स, बिलीव मी, फैक्ट्री बंद होने के अलावा कोई चॉइस ही नहीं है। लेट अस अज्यूम 2 करोड़ रुपए का टर्नओवर है, 5 साल में 10 करोड़ हुआ और 10 करोड़ के ऊपर 30% है, 4 करोड़ 3 करोड़ रुपए की लायबिलिटी आ गई, who can pay? So be very careful when you are availing exemption, particularly when the item is taxable at a higher rate. Second problem is tax credit is available, ITC is available only to the registered person. Section 16(1) starts with the language every registered person. तो अगर आपने टैक्स नहीं लिया, तो आपने परचेज पे भी उसका आईटीसी नहीं लिया, assuming that your supply is not taxable, I am buying certain material which has been subject to GST, I am manufacturing a product which according to my understanding that product is different than the raw material but it is exempted, and later on that becomes taxable. I have not to pay tax on the output liability, but my ITC shall also lapse because of the time limit as prescribed in. इसके अलावा पहले एक लॉ में मैंने बताया आपको 11C में सेक्शन होता था, जब गवर्नमेंट का पावर होती थी, अगर किसी इंडस्ट्री में कोई प्रैक्टिस चल रही है और उन्होंने टैक्स नहीं कलेक्ट किया तो उसको रेट्रोस्पेक्टिवली माफ कर देती थी। However, such provision has not been brought forward in the GST return. Special circumstances में जब मैं अपना डेरिवेशन शुरू कर रहा था, मैं बता रहा था कि एक प्रोविजन है स्पेशल ऑर्डर का, but then that is not wide as it is. Where the government is satisfied, तो एग्जम्पशंस देनी है इन द ओपिनियन ऑफ दिस पावर वेरी स्ट्रिक्ट। जो मैंने कहा कि अब वो भी पावर नहीं है, अगर आप कोई इंडस्ट्री भी कोई गलती कर रही है तो सरकार का पावर नहीं है उसको छोड़ने का, तो पूरी इंडस्ट्री कैन कम इनटू ट्रबल इफ दे आर अवेलिंग ए रॉन्ग एग्जम्पशन नोटिफिकेशन। नाउ दिस इज अनदर सर्कुलर। खुराना साहब मुझे बता सकते हैं कि शुड आई कंटिन्यू और शुड वी ओपन द हाउस फॉर क्वेश्चन आंसर और शुड आई कंप्लीट माय डेलिब्रेशन फर्दर?
Sir, you can complete, no issue. Few queries are there, we'll take that.
Right, fine.
After that,
ये सर्कुलर नंबर 109 है, which is very very important and it clarifies कि सोसाइटी में जब मेंबर्स को आप सर्विसेज देते हैं तो आपको 7500 रुपए पर मंथ पर मेंबर माफ होता है, but once it exceed 7500 then the whole amount will become subject to tax. अगर कोई सर्कुलर है, आप मानते हैं कि वो सर्कुलर डिपार्टमेंट की अंडरस्टैंडिंग गलत है, तो आप वो व्यू ले सकते हैं। मैंने बार बार कहा अपने डेलिब्रेशन में, सर्कुलर्स आर क्लैरिफिकेटरी, दे आर बाइंडिंग ऑन द डिपार्टमेंट, दे आर नॉट बाइंडिंग ऑन द एसएससी, देयर आर सर्टेन केस लॉ व्हिच आई हैव मेंशन्ड हियर व्हिच यू कैन गो थ्रू, क्लियरली टॉक अबाउट द सर्कुलर्स आर नॉट बाइंडिंग। These are further some judgments I have given here. With this I am concluding my deliberation and open the house for question answer session, if any. जी विवेक जी।
yes sir. Sir, one query from Sunil Jain. Coaching institute is exempt?
No sir, coaching institute does not fall into the definition of educational institution. So all the revenue earned by the coaching institute is subject to GST.
Okay. And another query from Neelam Yadav. Sir, I am paying royalty to in UK to arrange seed in to me in India. Should I need to pay GST under RCM for royalty as the seed?
First of all, the term royalty has been used in a different context and have a different meaning. Now, what I could understand from your query, you are paying certain commission in UK to somebody who is arranging seed for you. So he is an intermediary, because intermediary services falls under 13(6), which says that in the case of intermediary service, the place of supply is outside India. If he is an intermediary, the royalty term has been loosely used here, then because the location of the supply is outside India, not in India, it is not an import of service. For the purpose of import of service, supplier should be outside, recipient should be in India, and the place of supply should be in India. If this place of supply is outside India, you are not liable to pay any tax on such commission, I will say, rather than royalty.
Okay, sir. One more query from Dipinder Kaur. Whether residential services provided to students under skill development program like
I don't know, because they
DDU,
have
GKY
defined what is vocational training courses. If it falls there and has been approved by the competent authority, then only they are exempt. Even I don't understand what is the meaning of this abbreviation. So you need to tell me the exact nature of services, and then certain vocational services are exempted. You have to look at that definition and take your own call.
Sure, sir. And Vivek ji is saying advocate is doing tax practice.
Sir, it is not exempt, but it is
from-
liable to be taxed under reverse charge by the business entity who is obtaining the services. Once you are issuing your invoice, you must mention on the invoice that tax is payable by the recipient under reverse charge. Exemption is only in 4 situations. I discussed that issue much in detail. One, when you are providing service to another firm of advocate. Once you are providing service to an individual who is not a business entity. Once you are providing service to a business entity having turnover less than exemption limit. And fourthly, when you are providing service to the central government, state government, etc.
Okay. One more query is there. A state government issuing tenders to contractor, charging fees for tenders, whether it covers under exempt
No,
service.
once they're charging fees for tender, in any case, it is a sale of goods by them. Tender is nothing but a booklet form of a thing, wherein all the conditions and the details, etc., is being given. So, books are exempted, but tenders are not exempted. It is a taxable supply.
Okay. Kailash Gupta ji is saying whether loading and unloading of goods comes under reverse charge or not.
No.
Okay. And one more query is from Sahish Kumar. Institutes conducting business code approved by DGCA is exempt.
Institutes conducting business code?
Yes.
I don't understand what is business code. I think some courses may be there which are approved by DGCA. If that being so, there is a Delhi High Court judgment which says it is a course approved by law, not subject to service tax at that point of time. The same principle applies and may not be taxable. Looking to the fact, I don't understand what is. Now he says institute conducting courses. Yes, it may be exempt. Yes, it may be exempt.
Yes. Next query, Saurabh Jain. Sir, I am paying royalty for mining to state government. Whether it's exempted.
सौरभ जी, ये इशू लार्जर बेंच सुप्रीम कोर्ट के सामने पड़ा हुआ है. इसका आंसर दे पाना इस तरह के वेबिनार में बड़ा मुश्किल है. It is highly debatable issue whether it is a tax. If it is in the nature of tax, then no tax is leviable. But in case it is in the nature of fees, then tax is leviable. The matter is pending before the larger bench of the Supreme Court. I cannot comment on it.
Sure, sir. Last query ले लेते हैं sir. Whether EDC or CU charges taken by state government will be taxed under RCM.
Sir, फिर वही problem है, whether it is levy or tax. अगर ये charges हैं तो इस पे GST लगेगा. If it is in the nature of tax, because you are using the terminology EDC, which is called external development charges, and yes, CLU, change in land use, according to my understanding. So they are in the nature of tax. According to my understanding, it should not be there. But this is my personal view. The matter is being litigated in the courts, and finally the court verdict will prevail.
Rakesh Lodaji is asking, what about ITC on lift purchased by hotel since are giving order against ITC claim?
देखिए सर, authority of advance ruling is binding only in the case of applicant. If you go to Safari Retreat, which is given a judgment by Odisha High Court, it clearly says if you are using that building for the purpose of leasing out, then you are eligible for the credit.
Sure. Saurabh ji ka another query, sir, party is not paying RCM on royalty fees, then what to do?
इन एनी केस पार्टी को ही जमा कराना है, आपको जमा कराना नहीं है, डिपार्टमेंट उनसे टैक्स मांग रहा है तो डिपार्टमेंट जानेगा और वो जानेगा. इफ यू आर एन ऑडिटर टू दैट कंपनी, then you must qualify your report stating this can be the liability.
Sure. So thank you very much, sir, for such a wonderful presentation and explaining the provisions related to the exemptions under GST and answering the maximum queries. So it's really, really wonderful you are here, and it's our honor. And we request you, please give us time more and more so that members get
Certainly,
benefit.
it is my pleasure. Anytime I can do anything for CS Sansar. Most welcome.
My pleasure, sir. एक और लास्ट क्वेरी ले लें बस सर, एक और आगे.
Please.
ईश्वर जी की. Sir, we are transport service provider. Some goods are damaged in transit. Then party issue debit note to us. Whether it's taxable.
Sir, your debit note means you are making a claim. It is your expense. It is not your income. Party is raising a debit note to you. They're recovering certain things. Once it is your expense, there is the question of supply, unless it is under reverse charge. So it is your expense. There is no question of any GST.
एक और क्वेश्चन, बहुत क्वेश्चन आएंगे सर आपके लिए. तो सर, इन केस ऑफ ए चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट रनिंग धर्मशाला चार्जेस रेंट less than 1,000 per day and annual receipts from such activities rupees 25 lakh. They have given on rental or rupees 5,000 per month.
No registration required, all exempted, even if the receipt is 5 crore, so long as you are charging less than 1,000 rupees per day per unit, absolutely no problem.
So again, sir, thank you. काफी thanks आ रहे हैं आपके लिए. Once again, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And request everyone, tomorrow we have another webinar on the assessment under GST by CAS Dadaji. So please be there at 4:30 p.m. Sir, thank you very much, sir. Once again.
My pleasure.